Herding high achievers is like herding butterflies. If you've ever led highly intelligent people, you already know something strange. The more capable someone is, the harder they are to control. Not because they're difficult, but because their mind is already moving somewhere before instructions even arrive. They anticipate problems early, question assumptions silently, notice inefficiencies nobody else sees. And if you try to manage them too aggressively, something subtle happens. Their body stays, but their mind leaves the room. That's the paradox of high achievers. The same independence that makes them exceptional also makes them incredibly difficult to lead poorly, which is why managing high achievers often feels less like directing employees and more like herding butterflies. The tighter you try to grip, the less extraordinary they become. And most organizations do not lose their best people because of workload. They lose them because the environment slowly disconnects them from their own mind. There is a moment every experienced leader eventually encounters. You hire someone brilliant, self-driven, thoughtful, exceptionally capable. At first, they exceed expectations effortlessly. They improve systems without being asked, catch risks before meetings happen. They think 3 layers deeper than everyone else. And quietly, the organization starts depending on them. But then, leadership makes a common mistake. They assume what works for average performers will work for exceptional ones. More oversight, more meetings, more reporting, more process, more visibility requirements, and slowly the person changes, not dramatically, subtly. They contribute less insight, become quieter in meetings, stop volunteering ideas, stop emotionally investing in outcomes, and leadership becomes confused. What happened to them? But internally, the high achiever is asking a different question. Why does this environment no longer trust intelligent thinking? Because high achievers rarely disengage from hard work first. They disengage from meaningless friction. Most people are externally motivated to some degree. Compensation, recognition, status. But high achievers are often psychologically different. Their standards are internalized. They feel discomfort when work lacks depth. They notice quality gaps automatically. They think about unfinished problems long after everyone else logs off. Not because they are obsessed with achievement, but because competence has become part of their identity. This creates a hidden tension within corporate environments because organizations want intelligent people, but intelligent people tend to resist environments that suppress thoughtfulness, especially psychologically aware high achievers, the kind who notice political behavior disguised as leadership, the type that notices performance, meetings designed to create an appearance of clarity when there's none. And over time, these things create cognitive exhaustion, not because the work is difficult, but because unnecessary friction consumes mental energy. And eventually, many high achievers become tired, less from responsibility and more from constantly navigating avoidable dysfunction. One of the most dangerous moments inside organizations is completely invisible. A high achiever stops caring, not publicly, internally. And this usually happens long before resignation. At first, they stop offering ambitious ideas. Then, they stop correcting weak thinking. Then, they emotionally detach from problems they once cared deeply about solving. And eventually, their intelligence becomes selective. They contribute only enough to survive the environment, not enough to transform it. This is why some organizations unknowingly suppress their most exceptional people while believing they are managing performance. Because disengagement among thoughtful professionals really looks emotional. It looks calm, polite, professional, compliant. But internally, the person has already withdrawn from the organization psychologically. And when intelligent people emotionally detach, organizations often mistake silence for stability. Butterflies cannot be controlled through force. The harder you grasp them, the more fragile they become. High achievers often function similarly, not because they're weak, but because much of their value comes from psychological freedom. Freedom to think independently, freedom to pursue depth, freedom to challenge assumptions without punishment. And once that freedom disappears, performance may remain, but originality disappears first. That distinction matters enormously because many organizations accidentally optimize intelligent people into mediocrity, not intentionally, structurally. Too much oversight, too little trust, too much performative urgency, too little meaningful autonomy, and eventually the environment produces compliance instead of brilliance. That is the irony of leadership. The more exceptional someone is, the less effectively they can be controlled mechanically. Many high achievers experience a form of loneliness few people fully understand. Not social loneliness, interpretive loneliness, the feeling that their internal experience is invisible to most people around them, because thoughtful professionals often carry silent cognitive pressure constantly, replaying conversations, anticipating future problems, analyzing team dynamics, mentally refining systems nobody else is thinking about. And over time, their mind becomes both their advantage and their exhaustion, especially in leadership, because leadership multiplies psychological responsibility. Now your reactions affect morale, your emotional turn affects clarity, your uncertainty affects momentum. People begin interpreting reality through your behavior, and highly self-aware leaders feel this pressure deeply, even when nobody sees it externally, which is why many calm leaders are carrying far more psychological weight than anyone realizes. Micromanagement does something psychologically destructive to thoughtful people. It communicates distrust of judgment. And for high achievers, judgment is often tied directly to identity. That's why excessive control affects them differently. It's not merely annoying, it becomes psychologically suffocating, because internally many high achievers are asking, if my thinking is not trusted, then what exactly is my role here? Why am I here? This is where motivation quietly collapses, not because effort disappears, but because meaning disappears. And once meaning disappears, exceptional thinking slowly shuts down, which is why some highly intelligent professionals look disengaged in environments that technically reward performance. Their capabilities still exist, but their mind no longer feels invited into the work. The strongest leaders of high achievers understand something subtle. Exceptional people do not need constant pressure to care. Most already care too much. What they need is clarity, trust, intellectual respect, psychological space. The best leaders do not suffocate capable people with control. They remove unnecessary friction around them. They protect focus, encourage honesty, reward thoughtful disagreement, create emotionally safe environments for intelligent thinking. Most importantly, they understand that talented people cannot be permanently motivated through fear, only through meaning. And often, the highest form of leadership is creating environments where thoughtful people can remain psychologically alive. At a deeper level, many high achievers are not chasing achievement itself. They are chasing internal coherence, the feeling that their work reflects who they are intellectually. That's why meaningless environments affect them so deeply, because thoughtful people often experience work as identity expression, not merely obligation. And once that connection becomes distorted, disengagement becomes inevitable, not immediately, gradually, quietly, professionally, which makes it difficult to detect until the damage is already done. By the time many organizations realize they've lost a high achiever psychologically, the person has already been emotionally gone for months. Heading butterflies is difficult because butterflies cannot thrive through force, only through environment. And high achievers are often the same. The most thoughtful professionals rarely produce extraordinary work under constant control, emotional pressure, or excessive oversight. They thrive where intelligence is trusted, where autonomy exists, where depth is respected, where thoughtful minds are allowed to stay fully awake. And the organizations that understand this tend to keep exceptional people longer. Not because they control them better, but because they understand them more deeply. High achievers rarely need someone to push them harder. They need environments that allow them, their mind, to stay fully alive.